Welcome. Creative Financing with JB. We back again. Another Tuesday, another good information, good stuff we're gonna pass along this week. Something that we're gonna touch bases on this question and answer period of things that's about to happen in this market coming up. I got our great realtor Melvin Sarpey. He's gonna be with us to just kind of give us a brief overlook of how stuff is going to start to change. Everybody probably heard about the NAR settlement situation, and people get nervous. They don't know what to do. Buyers is asking questions, and you got to get it from the realtor. You got to get it from the lender. You got to get the truth of what's going to happen. What's the parameters that we're working with? How we're going to make it happen, and it's business as usual. It's going to be a little change. It might be a little different for some folks, showing houses and stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and let Mel just come on through and tell us what we're looking like on that NAR situation coming up.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again, Johnny, for the opportunity to share our knowledge with our guests and folks that are tuning in. So, as you said, there are a few changes coming in with the real estate market in terms of how agents transact, how agents deal with customers, clients, how agents deal with sellers and buyers in general. So it's definitely going to shake the real estate market a little bit. But with any changes in the beginning, it's a little shaky for most. But I think we'll ride the storm, obviously, on both sides. Realtors are savvy. Realtors are very, very good in terms of how they take in new changes and proceed according with their clients. So I'm here today to share, and then it's a Q&A. If any questions, you have any questions, definitely I'm here. Johnny's here, and we'll definitely make sure we get your questions answered. And if we don't have the answer, we'll definitely make sure we get back to you. Let's roll.
That's what we're going to do. And Mel, the first thing is now we come to a point where they're not going to announce the commission on their buyers are probably getting scared. They're probably thinking, do I just go and walk into open houses, or how do we deal with that type of situation from a realtor standpoint? What kind of conversation will we be having now?
Absolutely. So I think most buyers shouldn't panic, right? They shouldn't be scared. Yes, there are some changes coming, but that's why you need an expert. That's why you need a team. You need folks that are open to listening and guiding and directing you in terms of how to navigate this process. So, long story short, basically there was a judgment, new rule passed that sellers can no longer are not required to offer commission to buyer agents, right? In the past, it's kind of have been the process that in most real estate transactions, sellers offer to pay the buyer's commission. So that wasn't a cost that was put on to the buyer. Obviously, the buyers already have their down payment. They already have their closing cost. And in some cases, most buyers obviously don't have all the funds. So, the ability for that their buyer agent was being paid by the seller was obviously good. Now with the new rule, it's not required for the sellers to do that. It does not mean that the sellers are not going to, right? On the seller side, it's just a matter of conversation with their real estate, their listing agent is having with them in terms of offering some sort of commission to the buyer's agent. So if for a buyer, I mean, when in terms of my process, right, nothing really has changed. For any new buyer that's looking to buy a home, Johnny knows this, and most of my previous clients know this, is that I always have a buyer consultation with them. That's the beginning of the process, right? And
Hmm.
you may be asking, what's a buyer consultation? The buyer consultation is simply spending time with your realtor or me
Right.
in the beginning, even before you get started, even before you go get a pre-approval or anything as such. Why is that important for you as a buyer? One, you are educated about the process of buying a home.
Hmm.
I mean, most people forget that a home, buying a home is a costly investment. It's not as simple as going to the store and buying something, or
Right.
excuse me to say no this, or going out and buying a car. You're spending thousands and hundreds of thousands on a property. So for you as a buyer, you want to make sure that the person representing you in terms of an agent is knowledgeable. That person is educating you on the process, regardless of what you know, right? I mean, we're in the tech space. Everybody can go on Google and type in how to buy a house and they get information. It's as simple
Mhm.
as me doing the same thing, how to resolve my headache. But sometimes you got to go to the expert, so you got to
Mhm.
come to a real estate agent. So in my consultation, I explain the home buying process. I explain what a buyer agency is, and then I explain how I get paid. Now the new rule is a little different, so I'm going to explain how I will get paid from you or how we'll navigate that process. But it shouldn't be a scary thing for buyers. Again, that buyer consultation is an open forum for us to have that conversation in terms of compensation and all to proceed with.
Yeah, and that's awesome to know. And from the lending side, we're taking into consideration that we're going to estimate with the closing costs of what can be included with that compensation. So we had to take the time to sit down and say, hey, we're going to do your loan estimate after we do your pre-approval. We're going to include that realtor commission in there just in case, as that the seller's not preparing for compensation. So you'll be able to know what it looks like when it happened. As you know, it's a loan estimate. It's going to estimate the cost that we have situated for these circumstances, and it's going to give us the best way to do the business as possible. Do we have value here? Absolutely. The value goes in the realtor taking the time, as he said, doing the buyer's consultation and going through that whole stretch of imagination. So we're going to include that in your loan estimate as well. If you don't have to pay um, that buyer's agent um, compensation, that's perfect. We know that the closing cost is going to be less, but we don't want to have no surprises. So we would like to include that in your estimate for it and stuff, and make sure that you understand that these are fees that are liable can happen. These are fees that you probably know about. As Melvin said, he has his buyer's consultation. He talks about the fees and stuff with that. That's going to be so key for it. And the next question, Mel, they said something, and we was reading something about before they even go in a house, they got to sign this buyer's agency agreement form for that, so they can be on notice at that point in time.
Yeah, yeah. So the buyer agency agreement, interestingly enough, has been there in existence for a while.
Hmm.
That buyer agency agreement basically elaborates what your real estate agent's duties and responsibilities are to you, right? And it also highlights how compensation is paid. But again, in the past or before, the norm was in most cases the sellers were paying a compensation. So even though we had the conversation in terms of, hey, this is the agency agreement, I think in general, at least on this side of town, most agents were not getting the buyers to sign that agency agreement, and we're just taking clients out to show houses. Now the
Hmm.
rule has changed. Now the rule is that before a real estate agent can take you out to show you any property, there has to be a signed buyer agency agreement in place. That simply means that if you call an agent today saying that I just saw this property, I'd like to go see it,
Mhm.
that agent cannot just get up and say, meet me there at 7 p.m. They have to have that agreement in hand and in place. And
Mhm.
how would that occur, right? Um,
Right.
Most people are not just going to get up and sign any document that you send to
Right.
them just because they want to go see a house. So that means that that agent is going to have to spend some time with that person, whether it be a um, whether it be a lead from an online source, or um, it's a referral. That
Mhm.
agent is going to have to spend some time, obviously explaining, particularly the agency agreement. And for buyers, I think this is a good thing for you, right?
Mhm.
Why?
Mhm.
Because you want to know who you're dealing with, right?
Mhm.
You want to know
Mhm.
their work ethic. You want to know how they operate. You want to know how they're going to represent you in that
Mhm.
transaction. So it's definitely important that you don't hastily get up and just want to go see a house because you want to, but you want to invest the time. And I think it's a win-win for both
Right.
parties. Reason being is that as the buyer, you're getting to know who you're dealing with. Like I said, to make sure that this is someone that you would want to invest your time in to help you purchase a home. And from
Mhm.
that agent perspective, it's also a good opportunity to get to know your client, right? Who are
Mhm.
they? Nothing too personal. Who are they? What are they working with? What type of financing are they working with? So on and so forth. Um, and sometimes you can even get a feel if it's a mutual match before you go out there, or if it's not. So if it's not
Mhm.
a mutual match, then there's no need to continue. But if it is a mutual match, then you both discuss what type of compensation you will agree to, and then that agent can take you out to show you houses.
Right, right. So that's important to have that. You're gonna have your pre-approval, then you're gonna have that buyer's agency agreement. So we can have that relationship in place for that, um, and go from that whole standpoint. As far as just thinking to walk in and think you're gonna place an offer on a house like that, we want to prepare y'all so we can make sure we set the time parameters in place to have this all done in a decent time. Now, on the listing side, Mel, you can be more. That's a different conversation for the seller when we're doing that consultation when you're listing a house, and that'll be based on what we what will we be dealing with on that end? You said.
Yep, yep. So on the listing side, basically the conversation now from a listing agent with your seller or seller says that the seller, the listing agent negotiates what the seller is going to pay the listing agent only. Um, they cannot entice, they cannot advise, or they cannot push the seller to offer any sort of compensation to a buyer's agent. However, they can have a conversation around why, right? In some cases, it may be beneficial to offer some sort of compensation to a buyer's agent. And I think the most listing agents are seasoned and well versed, that they are prepared and ready to have that conversation that they've already been having anyway with sellers in terms of how they're going to get paid and how the process works in terms of when another party, in this case a buyer's agent, brings another party to purchase the house, how in some cases it's beneficial to the seller to offer some sort of compensation.
Right.
So the conversation changes a little bit, but again, it's not something that hasn't historically happened before. Because the current process, basically, when we go on a listing appointment, or at least when I go on a listing appointment, is we discuss what the commission is going to be. We let the seller know that that commission is going to be paid to the broker, to our broker. And then our broker will discuss with our broker how that commission is going to be split, and whether it's all of it is coming to us or we're going to share it with another agent. But that agent is not getting paid directly. That their agent's broker is getting paid, and then they get paid. So it's just little nuances with the lawsuit that is going to drive some changes. And to add to that, too, now in the MLS or the multi-listing system or service, there's no longer going to show. They're no longer going to show um, a buy agency compensation um, fee. Before, you could see exactly that, on this list, and
Hmm.
the other agent was offering X amount percent as
Hmm.
referral for having a client. Now it's no longer going to be the case. So us real estate agents are going to have to be creative in terms of if we want to find out if there's some sort of compensation in terms of finding that out. Obviously, there's different ways that we plan to go about it and try to make sure that we keep the market afloat and keep business moving efficiently and effectively.
Right, right, and that makes so much sense. So the next question somebody probably want to figure out is, will that be on a settlement sheet if they offer that commission, or how will they know at that point in time?
Absolutely. Yep. So on the listing agreement, right, with sellers, on the buy agency forms that buyers are now required to sign, those buy agency forms are now going to be submitted as part of the contract that is going to either the title company or real estate attorney's office.
Hmm.
That's how they're going to find out, what the commission percentage or splits are going to be and how it's going to be handled. If it's going to be all paid by the buyer, or if it's going to be all paid by the seller, or the seller's paying a certain percentage or portion and the buyer is covering it. So everything is going to be transparent, granted from that buy agency agreement that's going to go in place. And then also on the agreement of sale, there are new sections that highlight the commission and who's paying it and so forth. So again, I think this is all good, for the consumer because things are going to be more transparent in that space on their end. Even though they're kind of shutting off some
Hmm.
of that transparency on that has already been there. It's just a little change in how things are done, but over time, normally 6 months to a year, I think things are going to settle in, and the process is going to the market is going to adjust to the new process.
Right. And Mel, I know somebody's probably asking, what's the commission range that a buyer would pay or a seller would pay? I mean, what's normal? Do I pay 2%, 3%, 4%, or how do we factor in that? What's normal?
Yep. So that's a good question. In most cases, or as of now, the listing agent negotiates that commission and how it's going to be paid with with the with the seller's agent. Now the buyer's agent is going to have to negotiate that with the buyers. Um, on the average in today's market, commission anywhere from, and again, it all depends, 2% to 3%. Some even do more, but this is going to be the time to, as for buyers, see what that agent you're communicating with is asking, um, coupled with what are they offering, right? That's important. This is why it's very critical to have that conversation with an agent and not just sign anything, because from that space, you get to see what that agent is offering, and see if it's worth paying that agent. So, for example, just throwing out there, if you meet an agent that um, maybe they don't want to do a buy agency agreement. I mean, they don't want to do a buyer consultation with you. They just want to,
Mhm.
send you papers, sign, and they could take you out, and they got a ridiculous commission in there. Obviously, they haven't sold themselves to you, so why would you even sign it?
Right.
Unlike, but then if you meet with someone like me, where I would take the time, meet with you, explain the process of buying a home, explain the differences in finance, even though you're going to talk to a lender, explain to you what value I bring to the table, give you references, and then explain what the new rules are, changes are, explain, put a game plan together in terms of how
Mhm.
I'm going to get you from where you are now to getting you into a home. I'm going to work on your behalf in terms of negotiating and whatnot. By the time I'm done sitting with you, I believe that if I tell you this is what my commission is going to be, just based on that conversation, I think you're going to find out that you're not just paying anybody for anything. You're going to
Right.
realize that the services that I'm going to offer you for what I'm charging is it's worth what I'm charging. So,
Mhm.
and it's going to be the differences, between those who take our business, unfortunately, as a hobby, and those who take it as a business and invest that time with their clients.
Right, right, and that's so important. As he said, that conversation with that buyer's agency consultation is an important step in going through this process, so you can understand what's happening, what we're doing, what's going on, and the changes that's happening in this whole situation. This is a time to prepare you for that next step of what's going on in real estate, so you won't get the opportunity to say, hey, you ready to buy a home, but you haven't really figured out all the particulars that you need to during that whole process. You haven't taken the time to indulge and find out, hey, why is this changing, what is this going to affect me to, how's this going to affect me, what's going on with it now, why they won't take me out, because this is new practice, new procedure, new policy for it. I don't want y'all to look at the realtors as they're trying to be hard. They're setting up parameters for the requirements, what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and to make sure they ensure their own livelihood, with making sure that they have these documents in place to do that. The question is, are you prepared to make that change, to do that, and prepare yourself to go through that? Somebody might have said, Mel, why can't the seller still pay for this if I don't have money? Is it so hard where they can't afford it, or is that negotiable?
Mm-mm. Yeah. And the reality of it, sometimes in some cases, the sellers may actually be in a tight spot themselves. I mean, let's be real. We've had situations as listing agents, because our job is to help every seller navigate their current um, housing situation, right? So, for example, if we have someone in a short sale situation, or even going through a foreclosure, or the balance they have on their balance book on the mortgage is not enough. In some cases, they may be in a situation really where they really cannot, pay
Mhm.
more than what the listing agent is offering. All right. So couple that with having to pay another agent. Yep, I do get it that, and that may not be feasible for them. But the reason why historically most sellers have been quote unquote offering additional commission for buyers agent is because in most cases their returns, or what they're walking away after they sell the house, they have a little bit more money to play with, versus a new buyer, who is just stepping out there. They want to buy a home for the first time. They don't have enough funds saved up. They're getting they're getting some sort of program, down payment assistance program. They're getting a gift from family members or whatnot. They're already in a tight spot to even, dish out an
Mhm.
additional dollar or two to pay another agent. So in that case, that buyer agent who's bringing this buyer to purchase this home, and doing all the work with this buyer in terms of walking them through the process,
Mhm.
helping them find the home, discussing financing with the lender, helping them through the home inspection process, helping them through the appraisal process, helping them through the title process, making sure that they're not spending, checking in on them, through a lengthy list of things that a buyer agent does to get to closing. That's the reason why, in most cases, sellers are say, "Hey, I appreciate quote unquote you doing this job to get
Mm-hmm.
this person fully qualified so they could purchase my home. So this is something for you."
Mm-hmm.
And that's been kind of the norm in that aspect because believe it or not, there's a lot of work that goes into working with a buyer to help them purchase a home, whether it be their first home, second home, whether that property is worth only 100,000 or 500,000 or a mil. It's just a lot of work that goes in on the buyer agent side. So when the listing agent is looking to offer some sort of a commission, it's not just because they just want to do it. Because most cases, listing agents are also buyer agents, and they know the work that goes in, and that's why they're offered such.
Mm-hmm. And that's so important to know that. I know one of the questions that's going to probably pop up now. My house is a short sale, and how is that going to work out for commission in my short sale process? Um, will I even have the opportunity to get any seller's assist or help with that commission on the buyer side for it?
Yep, yep. I think on the bank side, I think they most likely are going to factor that in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, already some of I use this kind of swerving away. Some of the local builders, from conversation or from what I'm hearing,
Mm-hmm.
most of the local builders are still looking to offer some sort of a buyer commission uh, for any buyer agent that brings them a client to purchase any of their new homes. So I think
Mm-hmm.
on that space within the the real estate world with new
Mm-hmm.
builders, with the banks, they do understand the value of what buyer agents bring to the table. They do understand the challenges that sometimes some buyers may have in terms of getting funding to purchase. So they will want to off take that, at least one of those burdens off the buyer and pay the buyer agent. So
Mm-hmm. And that's
yeah, we'll
and
see.
that's good to know. Yeah, that's going to be good and interesting to know that we go through those situations where we have a short sale or we have new construction. Those are conversations that's going to have to be had to see if they can assist to get this going to make sure it's good for to make it happen. A huge thing we have to also consist is that you know. Look at your get your pre-approvals,
Mhm.
tell them to incorporate that, because we're incorporating it in there so you can kind of see, as I said in the beginning, it's a blessing if you don't, but if you do, you're preparing yourself for that so you can get your monies together and be able to allocate how that's going to work, what's going to work for it. There are going to be many options that you want to consider, but we need to have upfront and clear expectations so folks know that, hey, you're not setting up to fail to get in here. And they're probably going to ask the question, hey, can somebody cancel that buyer's agency agreement? Is it time frames on it, or how
Mhm.
does that work?
Yep.
For
Yep, there is time frames on it. Basically, mutual agreement between you, the buyer, and the agent, and you have all the terms, permission, the time frame for it, and any of the additional clauses that both of you want to set. That commission can be renegotiated, or there could be changes through an amendment to it. So I think it's the rightful thing to that for the longest the conversation has only been with the sellers, and now we just have to incorporate the buyers as well. Um, it's going to be a hard change, hard shift for most to understand, but again, I think we will navigate through that season. So
hmm
we're here, at least the realtors that are out there, putting in the work, uh, are
hmm
going to ensure that there's a smooth transition in the stage that we are.
and that's so important, so I want to kind of say that this is business as usual. It's just preparing
Yeah.
yourself. getting back to the basics of understanding how the operation is going to happen. No surprises, no last minute. Oh, I didn't think I was going to be responsible for that. We just want to give you a heads up, and this all comes through recent legal action that was taken to prepare us for the next step of the way. And I want to jump to another side of this too, because we've been running into this sometime where sometimes the values on the homes don't upstand to what we say, and that commission can change for it. So,
Mm.
do we have to do a brand new buyer's agency agreement if that happens, or how does that, or will we just do an addendum?
Yeah, so that will be done through an addendum. That's an additional document that was created, uh, basically an addendum to the buy agency agreement, and even one, I believe, for on the listing side in terms of commission. So to your point, if the numbers change and commission has to change, that can be discussed, renegotiated, I believe, again through an addendum change.
Yeah, yeah, for which is so important, and addendums are so important, so we can have them for closing. Attorneys need them, the lender needs them, so we can put all that together so everybody can be on the same page for that. So we understand that if the value comes in less than what we agreed to purchase with, you're going to have an addendum in place. You're not going to have to just redo the whole buyer's agency agreement and say, now I'm going to change all of the numbers. No, we're
Yeah.
just going to go and base it on the price that the home's valued at right now, for it, so you can be able to still purchase that home. The benefit for the buyer is going to be that it's going to be less. It's going to be some less commission or whatever on that hand, if that's the case. But you still have to understand that. Now, and tell me this: with this, buyers paying have to for the commission. What will happen to these? I think we have some other admin fees on the buyer side. Will those be included in the commission, or will they still be separate, like an admin fee or office fee or something?
Yeah, so it all depends on the negotiation. That's still up in the air between the buyer and the agent.
Mhm.
So it's an open conversation. Okay, this, I'm being charged X amount as commission, and then what is this fee for, right? So
Mhm.
it allows the agent to explain why there's a fee for this and why there's a separate fee for this. Obviously, now space, the understanding is the commission is for what the buyer is doing in terms of work. Now,
Mhm.
sometimes the broker may have other fees that the broker takes from that agent for that particular transaction. So, in most cases, the agent, by whether it be buy agent or listing agent, don't want to take on that broker fee that is being paid to that broker or admin. So that is an additional cost that's given to the seller or buyer to pay. But it's been something that's already been there. But I think now with the new changes, those conversations are going to have to be elaborated more or negotiated. And I think um, the rightful space environment to do this is obviously, particularly for buyers, is do a buyer consultation.
Yes,
The
sir.
sellers are going to do have their conversation anyway, because most sellers do have or communicate with the listing agent. They talk about all of these before the sellers sign an agreement and put their house
Mhm.
on the market. The buyer
Mhm.
side is where now that conversation is going to have to be more than it has been in the past. So
And folks, we love this conversation. It's important that if you have some questions, you have Melvin here. I'm going to let him give out his number. Best way to contact him, reach out to him, ask some questions so we can discuss some options with you to going through this, so we can make it a smoother transition to when you might not be ready today, but you're prepared down the line to go through this. So Mel, give me a number that where they can reach out to you and have that conversation.
Absolutely. My number is 302-312-6042. 302-312-6042.
Yeah, reach out, ask those questions. It's going to be important. It's a whole change of what's happening in the business now, because you're going to need somebody to give you some guidance, some understanding. You know, we know we're going to see some people just walk into new construction, which we always tell you, do not go alone, so you can have some representation for there, and they'll get to have that conversation with that builder or that sales agent in that new construction type of realm to do, because that's going to be it. Another part, don't just start walking into open houses, because remember, you need that representation. You need that person to speak on your behalf. You need that person to ask that question. Yes, they do have a thing. And Mel, tell them a little bit about dual agency so they understand how that works as well.
Absolutely. And before I do that, guys, sorry for the moving around.
Yeah.
I'm out with the family today at Darney Park, and I stepped out to jump in the car just so I can have this conversation with you. And it's a lot of moving pieces. I got the sun hitting my face in the car. My battery's acting up. Phone don't want to charge. Funny enough, even though it's charging, so I got to move to the driver's side to start it. But it's all good because we're having a conversation, and I think things are moving very smoothly here. So I'm gonna try it, but let's see if I can get this. See, still don't want to. All right, so I'm gonna toggle down. I got my laptop. See, whenever you got an agent working for you, I'm always ready to go.
Right.
So I'm switching. I'm gonna switch from my phone to the laptop here, Johnny. I think
Yeah,
we can still get this going. Just
absolutely.
because weirdly the phone is not charging, even though it's plugged in and everything here.
Yeah.
And
For
we'll keep this moving here. So just give me 1 second. Let
yeah.
me toggle over.
Yeah, and we're just talking about buyer's agency. He's going to break that down to you on dual agency so you can understand what that is. So you can be perfectly clear what you're getting into, why is it happening, what type of situation you're about to encounter here. So
Yeah.
you won't be surprised. You have to understand and can't get to the end of the road and say, oh, I didn't know this happened. Oh, I didn't know you represent that person and this person. But to understand the process of having equal representation by that same person. That's
Yeah.
why we try to reduce those type of situations if you can. If you have somebody that you probably feel that you're comfortable with, that's understandable. Not discouraging you from it, but you have to be educated. You have to understand what's going on in this whole realm so we can be successful out here in buying these homes, because it's the biggest investment you're going to make. And with this investment, you have to have everything in front of you, everything prepared for you, and everything that's ready and willing, that you understand every point of it for it. So, we want to take that into consideration each and every time, because we know that we're going to get some stuff happening out here, and want people to prepare for it, and kind of go from there. But it's important to have this education. It's important to have this conversation. This is a big move in here. I remember a few years ago we started the new TRID guidelines, and that maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 years ago.
Mm.
Can't recall right now, where we started talking about those things, and things started to change from where we had. And it was a little hiccups in the front at the beginning, as with all change. It's going to be some challenges, but they're good challenges. They're good understandings of what's going to happen here, but we have to be educated in it, and that's what we're trying to do right now.
All right. Yep. So I'm gonna jump into the dual agency and speak about it. Just an FYI, we're still rolling. The
Mhm.
battery's still not charging, and My Wi-Fi doesn't want to connect on the laptop, but I think we're doing good on time, and it's
Yeah.
probably going to run through. So, basically, dual agency simply means that the listing agent who's represented the seller
Hmm.
is also an agreement with the buyer to represent the buyer on this purchase of the house that the listing agent is selling, right? So, listing agent is working with the seller to sell their property, and they have that agent has a buyer who's interested in its property. They qualify for it, everything checks off, and they are also going to represent that buyer. What that simply means is that that agent in reality, it's called dual. They're representing the seller, they represent a buyer. Now you probably asking that question, how is that benefiting anyone, or how can they navigate that kind of transaction? Again, all goes back to consultation, right? Even if that listing agent is representing that seller, are they having a buyer consultation with you, and then are they explaining what that dual agency mean, or particularly if that is to happen, how is that agent going to navigate it so that they're also looking out for you as a buyer? Um, in a dual agency situation, I've done it multiple times. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But before we even get into a dual agency agreement, I am always straightforward with the buyer that this is the role I'm going to play. I'm always straightforward with the seller. Basically, in that situation, I let both parties know that I'm going to be the middle person, bouncing information back or offers or negotiating back between both, equally still advising both. And if we can come to an agreement and both parties are okay with the agreement, fine, we proceed, things work out correctly. If we cannot come to an agreement because one party is just not happy with the other party's terms, there's no hustle, there's no trying to nibble and dime, there's no trying to say something to entice the other party to continue going. I'm just straight up front. I let the other party know, hey, this is what this other party is, and because of that, I think it's not going to be a mutual benefit to both, and we just cancel and we keep it moving.
Hmm.
Um, and it's worked well. I mean, I've had transactions on dual agency side where from beginning to the end, nothing happened, everything went through straight, and we closed successfully. There's been others too where obviously you get to home inspection stage, things come up. I will be upfront with my buyers to say, hey, you need to have the seller take care of this. Maybe the seller's thinking because I'm dealing with both sides, they probably can navigate it or get away with it. I'm sorry, no. I still play that role. If inspections are not working out well and the seller is not looking to do anything or trying to now nickel and dime the buyer to whatever, I let the buyer know up front that normally this is how things play out. And if the seller says no, we just cut out our horses and everybody goes their way amicably. So dual agency does work. It can benefit a buyer in some cases. It can benefit a seller in some cases, but in other cases, it may not work well. In this new world, nothing is going to change.
Right.
That conversation is going to be part of what you, the buyer, you're going to have with your agent in terms of what happens in that situation. That conversation is going to happen as a listing agent if you get a buyer who comes directly to you and they want to work with you to purchase that
Hmm.
home. Nothing changes. Buyer agency, they still have to explain it. They still have to explain what commission they're going to charge you. They still going to have to explain to the sellers if there's a situation as such, if they can work things out and everything goes on right end. Um, that part of that contract is going to be going to the escrow office. I don't know yet. In Johnny, in the financing space, are you guys supposed to get the the buyer agreement also or not? I don't know how it's supposed to play on that end. I would assume, yeah, but
Yes, yes. So we'll have that. So we'll know what the commission is. So we know what the fees is because that's going to be part of our loan estimate when we disclose the numbers for it. And the reason we say that is that that's going to be a cost that if we don't disclose when they sign initial disclosures, we might have a situation
mm,
for that as well, even though that comes into play for it. That's why we're calculating it in the loan estimate when we're doing pre-approvals for it. So starting up, and a lot of folks have been doing it since the 1st of August, that when you're doing pre-approval, you're going to include that amount in there for it so we can make sure that we have accurate numbers for that for it. So yeah, we're really focused on that, so we won't have no tolerance cures and stuff like that for those fees because those can be sizable amounts, especially the commission, if we don't include those numbers
mm, mm.
for there, and they have to understand that change because just going back, just thinking that those little couple of $1,000s can make or break a deal
Absolutely.
for it right
Yeah,
there. And we don't want that to happen. Also, we want to make sure that they understand that just because you're doing dual agency don't mean the seller's paying for you since you work at both sides, you know. And they're like,
absolutely.
oh, you working for both of them, so he can pay it this time. No, for it. So take that into consideration as well for it. Something. And Mel, what about this? You think that seller's assist will help compensate for that, or how will we classify that?
I think it's going to be interesting in the new world of negotiating,
Mm-hmm.
right? With the seller, where um, a seller gets an offer in hand, right? Now they know that uh, technically they don't have to pay a buy agent, but they
Mm-hmm.
got this offer in hand where the agent is asking for commit seller credit or compensation to help the buyer offset their closing costs or pay down whatever. Along with that, the agent is also asking to be paid um, for their services. So, how does the seller in this new space take it as you're negotiating against me to lose money, and then you also want me to pay? I don't have the answer for that. I think on the it's going to be interesting how the sellers play it, but it also boils back again to on the listing agent side, how are they communicating all of this with the sellers on the initial listing agreement? So, like for example, on mine listing consultations, it's normally probably hour and a half at least because we dive
Wow.
into we dive deep into the process. We dive into the commission. We dive into all the what ifs. Sometimes I even go back for a second um, conversation before we sign, just because I want to ensure that the sellers do understand um, all the options they have um, that quote unquote is going to benefit them in helping sell their home.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and a caveat to that question in terms of how will sellers um, process, buyer credit, and then also paying a buy agent. Another caveat is if a seller's property, for example, hypothetically, it's sitting on the market longer than what it should for that community or that neighborhood, what is the seller going to offer, right, to help quickly move their property?
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, the seller may be willing to pay um, a buyer's some of the buyer's closing costs as well as pay the buyer's agent commission, or even offer more, right, on both
Mm-hmm.
ends, in the hopes that with their new offering, they can get the right buyer to purchase their home and keep things moving. So
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be interesting in the next 6 months how things play out. But I think in the long term, just like anything, just like in the financing space, like you said, when there were changes, it took a
Mm-hmm.
little while to
Right.
adjust, but now things I think are settled. It's going
Mm-hmm.
to be the same. It's going to be a new norm upcoming. But we're excited. I know you are. I am.
Yeah.
I'm built for this, and I think on my end, nothing is really changing. Just that I got to get you to sign the agency agreement before I
Right.
take you out.
That's it.
So
Don't meet me there because I got to meet you here.
nope, nope, nope. We can't do. Um, it will. You know what is also going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the agents that have their marketing business, particularly for buyers, are buying leads.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that space, I could be wrong. I believe that space is more tough with the leads coming in because there's no sort of initial relationship. So if a lead calls you, I want to see this house. Yeah, but I could show you. Let's spend some time. They're
Mm-hmm.
probably going to hang up and keep calling until they find someone who unfortunately is not willing to follow the process,
Mm-hmm.
right? But for agents where most of their business are referrals, like in my space example, about 85-90% of my business is referrals, right? By the time that client calls me to for me to represent them, someone has already given them positive feedback on me before they called or why they should use my services. So having a conversation with them on the buy agency agreement or the buy agency may not be that difficult, or they may be willing to they are willing to hear that we need to meet or we need to have a Zoom call before I can take you out versus an agent that is getting leads coming in and they're trying to get them to
Right.
some sort of a Zoom call and meet to explain by agents before they sign.
Right. And that's so important. It's the relationship, it's the ability to make sure that happens. And have that conversation. As you see, give Melvin a call, 302-312-6042. Have that conversation. Talk through some of these obstacles that you feel that might be in your way so we can have a clear understanding and a smooth path to this home buying process. Because once you understand and the needs and how this is going to all work, it's going to be perfect. It's going to be a good situation to where you just don't have feel like you don't have any clue. You have understanding. You have somebody that's going to educate, teach, and walk you through that process. On the lending side, let your lenders know, hey, I might be responsible for this commission. Can you
Mm.
give me a loan estimate with those numbers in there, just in case? Worst case scenario, put it in there so I can see it can make sense to me. I can put eyes on it and I can see how I can get this to work so I can have enough money for closing. If you don't do that, you hinder yourself from having a smooth transaction because when that fee pops up or that service that was rendered to you pops up and you got to pay the bill, then that's when the problem starts to raise and people start to have different emotions towards that. But up front, that conversation is so important. It makes sense to have. And guess what? It's just part of the process. Give Melvin a call, 302-312-6042. We're talking about the new change in this commission through the NAR settlement. We're talking about making sure that we're in the proper space to get these things done, finding the right situation and the right home. Because sometime now it's going to change on our pricing. And as Isabel said, awareness is everything. We
Yeah.
have to be aware. We have to be in that space. Don't walk into your lender, don't walk into your realtor, and don't have that conversation, because I can promise you down the road, it's going to be hard to really indulge in while we're responsible, because we're used to this certain role right now. Oh man, I don't have to worry about it. It's changing for us now. It's going to the next step of having uh, um, some responsibility and accountability
Yeah.
as we move in this whole time, and have that. Set up your buyer's consultation with Melvin. Talk to him. I mean, throw these things off of him. Figure out how we can get that money. If it's going to be a gift, down payment assistance. I'm gonna use my 401k. I'm a figure out, if is going to be available through my bonus and stuff like that. Those are conversations that's necessary to have before you go out here and start looking at these houses. Because the worst feeling is finding the house you love, know
Mhm.
you want to go get it, and you forgot this part of it, and you're right then have a bad taste in your mouth because
Mhm.
something got overlooked, something didn't make sense to you, or something's not going forth the way you like it. Have that conversation, dig in deep, and understand that we're just a resource here to help you. I'm gonna let Melvin have his final words. I thank him so much taking his time, from his family, just to give us this education, to give us this knowledge, so y'all can be prepared out here. Y'all can be prepared out here in this community of real estate to purchase your dream home, your retirement home, your investment home. All those things matter right now.
Absolutely, and thanks for the opportunity again. I always get excited, Johnny, when I'm on these shows with you, because I think we've been doing this in terms of educating our audience or educating the general public, long before these new changes came. So for us, I don't think it's anything new for us. In
Mm-hmm.
this space is just a continuation of the service that we've been offering to our clients. So, in terms of our conversations, I do it all day. Nothing is going to change. Nothing changes. Those conversations will go. But like I said, you're going to walk out of at least my buyer consultation, feeling very confident that you've chosen the right agent, the right team to work with because of what we offer. And just like, most people, when you're looking for an attorney to represent you in cases and whatnot, when they give you their fee, I think you are okay with it, or you're confident in
Mm-hmm.
paying them because you know
Absolutely.
they're going to get the job done. Same thing
Mm-hmm.
here, nothing changes. You want the best representing you in your venture to purchase one of the biggest investments that most people um, purchase in their lifetime. So why would you nickel and dime it in terms of what your buyer's agent should earn when they're representing you in these situations?
Absolutely.
So thanks for the time. I think we need to have another
Yeah.
Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
Beside this one, there were some few other questions that some of our audience had emailed or text me over the day or two in
Yeah.
terms of questions they had about buying or so. So this is definitely
Yeah.
a good conversation. We need to continue to have it, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm glad that Feel Good Talk Radio has put this show together, giving us an opportunity to continually continue to educate our audience. And we thank Chuck for putting all this together. Johnny, appreciate you having me on, and appreciate the time that you take with our clients as well. And like Johnny said, we are here to help. So don't hesitate. Give us a call, shoot us an email, follow us on our social media, and whatever it is, we'll make sure that you're taken care of. Well, someone told me a long time ago that people don't care what you know until they know
Um,
that you care,
that's
and
it.
that's what we do. I mean,
Mhm.
Johnny will tell you some of the clients that we deal in day out.
Yes.
If it was anybody else, they probably would have just given up on them. But we
Mm-hmm.
don't. We
Yeah.
go all the way out and make sure they are taken care of before our needs. So thanks for the
Yeah.
opportunity again. I'm ready to go jump on one of these crazy roller coasters here. Get my wild on before the wild ride starts August 17th with the new changes.
That's right. Thank y'all again, man. Thank y'all for tuning in. We'll be back next month with the next education with these questions and answers. Y'all have a good one, Mel. Enjoy yourself out at that park. And thanks for attending tonight. Y'all have a good evening.
Much appreciated, everyone.